day and welcome to this episode of Focus On. We are at the Black Industrialists and Exporters Conference,
where key stakeholders drive the conversation to create a new generation of Black industrialists. I caught up with the CEO of the Industrial Development Corporation, Tshokolo Nchocho, who expands on the involvement of the IDC at the Black Industrialists and Exporters Conference.
The DTIC is the principal department that supervises the IDC. So we agreed together with them to organize this particular inaugural event. So in substance, we need to start at the beginning. What are we trying to do here and what are we acknowledging here today? As the President said, there is a particular history to this country, and so the first issue that we are talking to and acknowledging today is that there is a need for redress as required in the Constitution. There is a need for greater economic inclusion of black people in the economy, and this is also espoused in the Constitution. So institutions such as the IDC, the Department of Trade and Industry, and various others have been instrumental over the years in terms of providing a variety of support measures to businesses in order to promote this greater black inclusion into the economy. And yes, as the Industrial Development Corporation, our primary role is that of providing funding. And a couple of stats that can be mentioned, earlier on it was mentioned that in total, in excess of about 55 billion has been invested in support of black industrialist businesses. So attributable to the IDC, our contribution over the past 5 years or so, the numbers are just over 33 billion. It's 33.6 billion rand to be exact.
What is your plan to implement these funds to these black industrialists and entrepreneurs?
Yes, the way we work is as follows, and I think that's a very important question. Look, there are two ways in which people get into businesses, isn't it? In the first instance, somebody can start a business from scratch, a greenfield, a start-up business. In the second instance, somebody can have an opportunity to buy or to acquire an existing business. So the IDC assists in both fronts. So our primary emphasis when we get into assisting black industrialists is to provide this which we call quasi-equity and or equity finance, which is basically a layer of capital that enables ownership into the business. And then on top of that, we can then layer it with some debt, or a company can raise debt either from the commercial bank market or from any other sources of debt. And in the same way, when we provide acquisition finance, of course, subject to the valuations of these businesses, our inclination is always to provide the kind of equity capital that will enable the acquisition at the lowest possible price cost, but also provide the breathing space and the working capital for these businesses to establish themselves and to be able to find their way into markets.
What is the expected return of investment from these individuals?
Very great question. We are a development finance institution. We are a bank, but a bank with a particular social purpose. So the IDC is run on a very sound financial and very sound banking principles. But we have a responsibility to operate, as I normally say, on the higher end of the risk spectrum. Our propensity for taking risk has to be and is higher than your average commercial bank. Why do we do so? It's so that we can enable financial flows. So the returns really are at two levels. One, we want to see sustainable businesses that would be able to pay us back, return the capital that we have invested in these businesses. That is the first one. But going with that is the social return. Transformation and black economic empowerment cannot be of value to this nation of ours if it is not growth oriented, in other words, the business is expanding and growing, and secondly, if it is not inclusive in a sense of employing more people, benefiting the workers.
It's been a very interesting, day, start of the day of the conference for us, because we were then able to share some of our successes. That doesn't mean that, we still don't have a lot of challenges going forward. So for instance, as the NEF, we started with this Black Industrialists program about 10 years ago. So the total investment that we have actually put into the program, it's about 1 billion rands, 925 million rands. That has supported about 18 black industrialist projects. So what then happens is that let's look at one transaction, for instance. You want to start something new, you want to start it from scratch. So if, for instance, you wanted to be involved in the IPP, the Renewable Energy Program, it means even before you can get to the Department of Minerals and Energy to get your foot in the door in terms of being considered as one of the bidders, you must have invested your own cash. That's what we call own equity contribution. So we are saying, a lot of speakers are saying, that's where the real challenge is, because a lot of black businesses don't have access to own equity financing. So it's a type of a financing instrument that black people don't have, because once you have invested black equity or venture capital financing into your project, then it would be much easier for you to get what we call, the loan financing portion from Standard Bank or Nedbank or any of your commercial banks in South Africa.
What role does the NEF then play to ensure that these gaps are closed and for them to ensure that the funding is allocated to them?
So we have actually developed a suite of financial and non-financial interventions. So we don't just focus on the financial aspect of the work that we are doing. There's a lot of non-financial support that we are giving to our black entrepreneurs. For instance, we have developed a business plan toolkit, which is available for free. It's on the web, because one of the constraints that we had identified as the NEF was the ability of our black entrepreneurs just to conceptualize some of these business ideas. Before you can even think about approaching the NEF or any of the DFIs or even the financial institutions, you must have a business plan that must talk to the financial projections, cash flow projections, and all of that information. So you can get it, it's available on the website, the NEF website. So that was the first bottleneck that we had to actually deal with. So it just facilitates the process, because you wouldn't even know what type of information are you going to be required to submit to an entity like the NEF. So it's actually there. So that's the first thing. We have the pre-investment support that will also provide a group of young professionals who will provide advisory services, pre-investment advisory services to our black entrepreneurs. Obviously, lack of capital is one of the constraints. And as I said, we don't say to you that you must have, if there's no money in your bank account, but you have these brilliant ideas, you mustn't think that, because I don't have my own equity contribution, therefore I can't approach entities.
How can we draw, foreign investors to look at black industrialists, and also how, how they can fund or be involved with agencies like yourself?
So we participate in a lot of these, conferences that we will do in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. Like, for instance, I attended another one 2 weeks ago. It was organized by the French Chamber of Commerce. They had investors that were coming from all over France. They're looking for partners. So what we will do, we will take our black industrialists, we will invite them to also come and participate. So that's where we'll then be showcasing some of their manufacturing capabilities to those foreign, direct investors. Because you must remember, when we talk about foreign direct investments, other investors are looking for tangible projects. So those are the projects that the NEF has actually conceptualized from scratch with our various partners. And the total portfolio, by the way, of those projects is estimated at more than 13 billion rands.
As a retailer, we're very supportive of black industrialists. We support them through market access, because all the products that we sell in our stores, they're not manufactured by us, they come from somewhere. So by sourcing from companies that are black owned, we promote transformation, we promote access to our supply chain by black industrialists, by black owned firms, youth owned companies, women owned companies. Last year, for example, we sourced 11.7 billion rand of products from black-owned companies. 1.7 billion of that was from small companies that have got a turnover of up to 50 million rand per annum. And interestingly, 8.5 billion was from companies that are 30% or more owned by black women. How do we assist these companies? We assist them by giving them market access first. Some need funding. We provide funding through our supplier development program where appropriate. Some also need to improve their operational efficiencies. We also have interventions through consulting industrial engineers that we have retained, that we deploy to assist where their assistance is needed. So it's really a holistic approach that we use in order to support black industrialists and black-owned companies, women and youth-owned companies.
How do we bridge the gap to bring black industrialists into, the economy and into the sector?
For us, really, it's a strategic imperative that we have to incorporate black industrialists in our supply chains. We're doing that because it is commercially sound in the sense that most of them are all of them actually located in South Africa. So therefore, it allows us to increase local sourcing and support local manufacturing. That allows us to have efficiencies in terms of reducing the cost of logistics and also the long lead times that are sometimes involved in sourcing products. So it's a strategic imperative for us, but it's also a socially relevant issue for us in the sense that by supporting black industrialists, we are promoting an inclusive society. And with an inclusive society, then we can be able to benefit from more stability, and more stability creates more opportunities for investors to come and invest because they like countries and societies that are stable.
How do we then bring together government and the private sector to support these black industrialists?
That's a great point, Morwick, because we have had good partnerships with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. We have also partnered where appropriate, worked with the IDC, which provide funding to black industrialists. So there is a need to really collaborate across sectors. You need government and business to work together in order to create an enabling and very supportive environment for industries to flourish, to be able to export their products. We have worked with some local suppliers that are exporting to some of the markets where we operate outside of South Africa. And also with us being part of Walmart globally, we also assist local South African suppliers to access the Walmart supply chain at a global level. So we really have to be joined up in terms of getting the public sector and the private sector working together to support black industrialists.
Both public and private sector need to work together in order to bridge the financial gap to create a new generation of black industrialists. Until next time, goodbye.